Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the No Respect podcast. Today, we're going to continue where we left off yesterday, as far as our picks for the best game ever 20th anniversary on GameFAQS. So back today is me, Shox. We also have Sonic and Dabu, who you remember from yesterday. We also have a new guest, a new expert. His name's UltimoSock, and he'll be joining us for today. Would you like to talk about yourself a little bit?
Sure. I guess of the people on the panel, I don't know if this is 100% accurate or not, but I'm probably the guy who is least frequently uses game facts. So, in terms of my familiarity with the community, I do kind of abide by a bunch of stereotypes when it comes to making my decisions, looking at the actual bracket or whatever. But you know, lifetime gamer, and in fact, in the area that we're looking at right now, I've played all the games that are mentioned. We're starting off with Division 5, and I've played all these games, pretty familiar with them. So I feel like I'm gonna feel pretty confident in my decisions. So
Okay. Well, it's good to have you on the show. And starting off with, speaking of the community had some complaints about our decisions. So we're going to start off here with a comment that was made about Sonic. It says, it's about Sonic considering The World Ends With You a Japanese RPG. Sonic, do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, so I'd like to just reply to Steiner specifically, and what I meant was I was mistaken when I said that JRPGs and Nintendo DS is a niche title each. What I meant specifically was that Nintendo DS JRPGs in general as a whole are a niche market, and only niche individuals would actually prefer these titles. So against the competition is just not going to compete.
Okay. And also, this question goes to Dabu. Steiner considered you a voice of reason, but it appears that he lost all respect for you when you had Mega Man X beating Final Fantasy X. And then he said a curse word. Do you have any questions about that, or do you have anything to say about
Well, I
that?
think it's called Final Fantasy X and Mega Man 10. Um, Other than that, I don't really have any commentary about it. I stand with my pick, and I think you'll see eventually I'm right. I mean, in the past, in these contests, I've made some very controversial picks sometimes, but in the end, time has always proven that I'm correct. So that'll happen again.
Okay. So as far as the community, we want to thank you guys for, giving us your input and your feedback. We're trying to address the sound quality. It should be a little bit better today. And, we're trying to improve the show. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. And we want to make it as good as can be. So here we are. So without further ado, we're going to move on to Division 5. So just right from the very beginning, we're going to start with Zelda Ocarina of Time versus Hearthstone. Zelda Ocarina of Time is obviously one of the favorites here. Does Hearthstone, Hearthstone's big right now. Does it have a chance? What do you think, Dabu?
No, it doesn't.
You want to
I
elaborate?
think I think Hearthstone was more of a joke pick than anything. Honestly, it has no competition. It can't compete with anything. In fact, I think Animal Crossing New Leaf could beat it in that regard, especially on GameFAQs. So I would not consider it a competition.
it's no competition. I'm in agreement. It is no competition.
Okay. I want to see Hearthstone win just to prove you guys wrong, but I think Ocarina of Time will move on. So that takes us to the 8 versus 9 seed. We have Suikoden, Suito. We have the 8 seed versus Monster Hunter for you. What do you think, Sonic?
It's called Suikoden too, and it's actually probably the best Suikoden title out of all of them. Just because of its story. Its story was so robust and in-depth. And against Monster Hunter for you, I mean, I know 6 people that's ever played Monster Hunter for you. And I think only 3 of them visit GameSpec.
So a little bit about the Suikoden game that I kind of know. It was released in 1998 on the PlayStation. Is it considered, it's probably considered one of the best PlayStation games in the RPG genre?
Are you reading the Wikipedia page?
Are you Wikipedia us? But I will agree that it's one of the better RPGs on the PlayStation, for sure. And not only that, the original mint condition Suikoden goes for anywhere from 150 to like $200, while Monster Hunter for you can buy with like a pack of gum.
Okay. So you're voting for Suikoden. What about you, UltimoSock?
Suikoden. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is not. I mean, it definitely has an online following, but it's not. Suikoden 2 is a very well respected RPG.
Dabu?
I pretty much agree with the previous two comments. I think this is. I mean, I think Monster Hunter 4 has probably more fans than they're given it credit for, but I just think it's not quite at the same level.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a pretty close matchup between two great games, but Suikoden 2 is going to move on. So we're going to have Okami versus Warcraft 3. This is a really interesting matchup. I could see Warcraft 3 not necessarily being a dark horse, but I do think it wins this one. It was the game, right before World of Warcraft, so it kind of set up that franchise. And I think it has a lot of love on this website. What do you think, UltimoSock?
I agree. Even though I've
Sorry, that was my ringtone. Sorry.
nice ringtone. Even though I like Okami, I think it's a really good Zelda clone. Warcraft 3 is probably going to take it for sure in this category. So
I don't know. I feel like Okami might be more popular on this website. I feel like the RTS games in general just... I don't know. I don't think they have many fans for the GameFAQS. I don't know. My bracket has Warcraft 3, but I could actually see the argument going either way. I don't think this is a one-sided match at all. I mean, I mostly just have Warcraft 3 because I'm a little biased. So, I don't know. I think AJ is less biased than I am, so I'd be interested in hearing his opinion.
So this vote right here, Okami versus Warcraft 3, the only thing it will boil down is to the GameSpec personalities of what they prefer. Because if we had to break it down, Warcraft 3 would hands down win, right? There's no competition. Okami was a great game, but it can't compete with Warcraft 3 and the lineage that it has. But GameSpec users, I can see them voting for Okami, but I think they're going to show Warcraft 3 a little more respect than that. I think Warcraft 3 will edge out.
So I think it's safe to say majority is going for Warcraft 3 here between us. So I'm going to have that moving on to the next round. Takes us to Final Fantasy IX versus Kingdom Hearts. What do you think, Sonk?
I think Kingdom Hearts is going to win. A lot of people did like Final Fantasy IX, but Kingdom Hearts actually was one of the... was really well loved, right? In GameSpec as well. But according to these seeds, it was not as loved as I thought it would be. But I still have faith that Kingdom Hearts will beat out Final Fantasy IX.
I disagree. I think Final Fantasy IX is probably more popular on this website. I mean, Kingdom Hearts certainly has its share of fans, but the fans overlap with the Final Fantasy fans. And I think when it comes to Final Fantasy versus not Final Fantasy, I think they'll side with the Final Fantasy title, especially if it's one of the ones on the PS1.
I agree with Dabu 100%. I think going with Kingdom Hearts on this one is going to be a bad call because it's literally the reason why Final Fantasy fans were attracted to that game is because it featured Final Fantasy characters, right? So why the hell would they pick the Disney Final Fantasy infusion when they can pick a pure Final Fantasy game? Just kind of playing around with the logic of it or whatever. Even though Kingdom Hearts has a really high dork quotient, as I like to call it, in terms of like figuring out the thought process of GameFAQS user, it does have a very high dork quotient, but it's still not mainstream Final Fantasy IX, so Final Fantasy game.
Fun fact, Final Fantasy IX characters and themes was never introduced in Kingdom Hearts, but I understand what you mean. I definitely...
Oh, you mean actual Final Fantasy IX characters? And you're right. They weren't in the, but the Final Fantasy
I agree with you. Now that I think about it, Final Fantasy IX could possibly take it simply because it's called Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I've picked against Final Fantasy previously, and the Final Fantasy fanboys are freaking everywhere on this website. So I don't really want to piss them off again, so I'm going to go with Final Fantasy IX in this matchup. And this takes us to Xenoblade Chronicles versus Donkey Kong Country 2, which I think is a matchup that has big upset potential, with DKC2 being the 14th seed. What are your thoughts, Dabu?
I think Xenoblade will win this pretty decisively. I think Donkey Kong Country 2 is a fantastic game. It's a great platformer. It's got lots of secrets, but it's just not going to be popular on this website. It's been in, I'm pretty sure it's been in these contests before, and every time it's been very, very disappointing. Meanwhile, Xenoblade, it's not as obscure as you'd think it would be on a website like this. I think it has a lot of fans, and that's why it got a PC hit.
So this is actually a vote that I agree with Dabu that on GameFAQs it's going to be more popular than DK2, but it's also one of those votes where I absolutely detest our generation of gamers on GameFAQs because they're clearly mistaken if they think Xenoblade Chronicles can compete with DK2. But this isn't personal bias in that regard, so I'm going to go with Xenoblade Chronicles beating DK2.
I've played Xenoblade Chronicles, and I'm familiar with the game, and I actually really don't like it, and I think it's it's one of these really, really gross JRPG, whatever, but I agree with you guys. I think it probably will win out because DKC2 is it's not one of the most popular SNES side-scrollers, so even though it's very, very good, it's just not as popular as some of the other ones. So
I don't know. I think Donkey Kong Country 2 being the only Donkey Kong game in this entire tournament, if I remember correctly, I think that the fanboys for Donkey Kong, all 20 of them, will come out and vote for this game and carry it to victory. But since you guys have Xenoblade winning, we're going to move on with that. Takes us to another, in my opinion, interesting matchup. We have Fire Emblem versus Super Mario Maker. Super Mario Maker just came out, 3 months ago or something?
Just came out a month ago.
Yeah. So I don't even know how it made this contest, but we're going to start with UltimoSock. What do you think about this?
Oh, I mean, this is easy. I mean, Fire Emblem Awakening is considered the best in the series by a lot of the fans, and obviously Super Mario Maker just came out, and it's on a pretty unpopular platform, Wii U, which is also complicates things even further. So I'm going with Fire Emblem.
My argument for this is the same argument I had for Undertale versus Mass Effect 3. If people actually knew what it was, it would clearly win out. But since it's so new that Super Mario Maker has the same negative to it, I think Fire Emblem's definitely going to win.
Well, see, my problem with this is that Super Mario Maker doesn't even... it's a game where you make levels and play levels from other people. It doesn't have, a story or anything, as far as I'm aware.
No, but there's definitely a competitive side to it, right? Because the 100 Expert Lives is a very competitive.
Well, this is GameFAQs. They don't care about competitive. If they wanted competitive stuff, Counter-Strike would be in here.
If they wanted competitive, they would go with DKC2, but Xenoblade Chronicles is going to win.
But I would think these are more casual gamers who are wanting a game with a story, stuff like that. And Super Mario Maker doesn't really offer that, and that's why I think Fire Emblem, wins pretty easily here.
I took Mario Maker without even thinking, and I still side with that pick, but it sounds like I'm outnumbered here.
Why would you take it without thinking?
Because
it says Super Mario. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Mario title, and everyone knows the Mario title. Everyone in the Wii U who owns a Wii U owns this game.
All
I think the sales.
I need some statistics of how many of those Wii U users actually visit the GameFAQs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I don't think they do.
People to share their levels with.
No, Wii U users and owners do not visit the internet, and specifically places where their console is criticized. I mean, they live in their own little dome of ignorance. Their console is the king.
Well,
I don't think they visit.
Once they're done playing, they can go to a computer, go to their favorite website, which is probably GameFAQs. Or Reddit, or whatever it is.
It's probably Reddit.
They'll vote for it. And all it takes is someone to make a level that says, with the characters, go to GameFAQs. That's all it takes.
I don't think anyone will do that. I don't think Mario makers are actually dedicated enough to do that.
Well, I don't either, but I think they're more dedicated than Fire Emblem fans.
I also think the idea that that someone would base this decision off story is also faulty because I mean Super Mario games by and large don't have stories, so it's like, you know.
Bowser kidnaps the princess. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess it's
The
just
story is straight.
for the average GameFAQs user, there's nothing that there's nothing that makes this Super Mario game really special. Like it's a game where you
Yeah.
create levels and play other people's levels. It's not like, you know, the old Mario games where you're navigating through worlds or finding secrets and stuff.
But if you own a Wii U, there's not any other games.
Nobody owns a Wii U, so Fire Emblem's gonna win, and we're moving on to the next round. Banjo Kazooie versus Baldur's Gate 2, a Nintendo 64 game versus like a PC game. I think they were made like 2 years apart. What do you think,
That's what
UltimoSock?
Wikipedia says.
I picked Banjo Kazooie because Baldur's Gate 2. It's a PC title, which is those are just this does seem to be more of like a console oriented website in general. So and Baldur's Gate 2 is kind of esoteric. I mean, it's the better of the two Baldur's Gate games. I don't know if there's just two. I think there's more than two, but it's of the ones that are like the top down perspective or whatever. It's the better of the two. But I still pick Banjo Kazooie because it has more name recognition and it's console. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ultimo that Banjo Kazooie will win out because of its namesake. The users on GameFAQs, I don't think fully appreciate Baldur's Gate, the aesthetics of it, and just how appealing it was, gameplay-wise. But Banjo Kazooie has the namesake; it's going to win. Pretty.
I'm also going to side with Banjo Kazooie here, pretty much the same reasons.
Yeah, I have Banjo Kazooie moving on too. Does anyone have any objections over Castlevania Symphony of the Night beating Phoenix Wright?
Now I can argue this a little bit, but
Okay.
No.
I don't think I'm going to waste my breath.
Please.
Castlevania. will-
Yeah, I think we're all taking Castlevania. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Don't want to get flamed on GameFAQs, so I understand you want to hold your opinion to yourself. Looking back to the top, Ocarina of Time versus Suikoden 2.
We don't need to talk about any of the Ocarina of Time matches.
Well, we need to have some kind of commentary. My commentary is that OOT is going to win pretty easily.
Okay, some great commentary.
Anybody?
So I actually prefer Suikoden 2 over Ocarina of Time because I think it's just hands down the better game. But I don't think anybody else will agree with me, so Ocarina of Time will move on.
I think it's just a very one-sided match on this website.
I just
Yeah,
think,
Pretty sure Ocarina of Time is going to win the entire contest.
I just think regardless of how good the game is, regardless of what game it is, it's going to have a tough time matching up with Zelda Ocarina of Time.
No, it's Ocarina. It's Ocarina.
Yeah, the backing behind Ocarina is just too powerful. In fact, I see it going all the way in this division.
Yep, so Warcraft 3 versus Final Fantasy 9. I want to say this is an interesting matchup, but I kind of think I know who's going to be favored to win here. Your thoughts, Dabu?
I think regardless of whether it's Final Fantasy IX or Kingdom Hearts, I think either of them would surpass Warcraft 3.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, this is RPG facts. You're not going to beat it.
Surpassing Warcraft 3.
Yeah, I picked 9 as well because it's just no, it's too much.
Yeah, it's Warcraft versus Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is going to win. Xenoblade
Yeah.
Chronicles versus Fire Emblem Awakening.
You don't want to give a shout-out to our Warcraft 3 Bogey Boys?
No. Xenoblade Chronicles versus Fire Emblem Awakening. Sonic, you want to start off with that one?
Alright, so this is an interesting matchup because I think Xenoblade Chronicles actually has a more powerful backing in terms of how many people will come out in force for it. So I definitely think Xenoblade Chronicles will surpass Fire Emblem. Even though I don't personally like Xenoblade Chronicles, I think it has too many issues. Specifically, like Ultimo mentioned it, a JRPG style. But Fire Emblem definitely was a little more appealing to me. But the backing on GameFAQs will definitely go for Xenoblade.
UltimoSock, your thoughts?
I picked Fire Emblem because I mean Xenoblade is just it wasn't as critically well received. I mean I don't know. Again, this is part of my issues. I'm not as familiar with what the community is going to mobilize behind. So they may very well get behind Xenoblade, but in terms of I had to base this one on my own understanding of the games, and I picked Fire Emblem because I know that it's the higher quality of the two. So I just had to go with my own perspective on that one.
So GameFAQs users are very superficial, especially with graphics and aesthetics. They're not going to appreciate a 2D style like Fire Emblem. That's just how it's going to be.
You also have to keep in mind Xenoblade was on the Wii also, and the DS, while Fire Emblem was only on the DS, so it probably got more exposure.
Well, according to Dabu, there's Wii and Wii U users come on GameFAQs.
I think the Wii was a lot more popular than the Wii U. I mean...
Yes, undoubtedly.
And I think that will get Xenoblade more exposure, and therefore more people will vote for it because they know of it. So I'm saying Xenoblade. So that's 2-1. But what does Dabu think?
Well, my bracket has Super Mario Maker, but
You just get out of here. You just get out of here right now.
but I think between the two, between Fire Emblem and Xenoblade, it's a tough call. I mean, I think Xenoblade has a more diehard fan following, probably, and I think that will help it surpass Fire Emblem on this website.
I think that's pretty fair. Some good analysis out of everybody contributing. Banjo-Kazooie versus Castlevania.
I mean, really, Mario Maker's going to be what wins that.
Banjo-Kazooie versus Castlevania. Mario Maker has no freaking chance.
Banjo-Kazooie. The 4 Wii users will argue against it. Okay.
Banjo-Kazooie versus Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You have your little goofy game, versus a very serious game like Castlevania.
I don't know if I'd say Castlevania is very serious.
I want to say serious. I want to say serious, but it just...
What is mad?
They just... Wait, what'd you say?
No.
He was quoting the
game that you have to play.
He was quoting the game.
Okay. I can't
Shox, do you know who the main character of Castlevania Symphony of the Night is?
So what do you think UltimoSock is going to win this?
Hands down, Symphony of the Night. At least from my vantage point, in terms of it has, I mean, because I was trying to be considerate of the community, and I mean, if you're looking at Banjo versus Sawden, I mean, Symphony of the Night has RPG elements and those sorts of things that people on this website generally prefer. So I picked Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
And I'm going with Castlevania Symphony of the Night too. Like you said, the RPG elements in it. I think GameFAQs people would generally appreciate more than Banjo-Kazooie.
Do you even know it had RPG elements in it?
What do you think about this one, Dabu?
I think Castlevania wins pretty easily. It's a very good game. It's a little on the easy side, but I think it's aged much better also than a collectible one.
I stand behind the superficial comment, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night looks much cooler, and that's all that's needed for GameFAQs users.
But what about your 2D versus 3D argument?
Well,
yeah.
There's a difference between when 2D and 3D mixes with JRPG. So, when you have a 2D title such as Castlevania with Western-looking users, or facial features, I think it's gonna flat out. I don't know what that had to do with anything, but it looks cooler, and that GameFAQs users will vote on it.
Zelda versus Final Fantasy matchup. This will be pretty interesting. Final Fantasy IX and Ocarina of Time. I want to pick against Ocarina of Time, so I'm going to stick with it, but, you guys might think differently. We'll start with Sonic.
I don't.
I think Zelda Ocarina of Time will win. There's no argument. I don't think Final Fantasy, even though it has the backing, will ever compete with Ocarina of Time.
I mean, Final Fantasy IX is not a highly regarded Final Fantasy.
No, it's one of the lesser Final Fantasies, for sure. It's not. I mean, it's going up against what's considered by many Zelda fans to be the best in the series, and it's not. I mean, it's not Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy VII, so it's just There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, it's no Final Fantasy VIII for sure.
So that'll take us to Xenoblade Chronicles versus Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Or according to Dabu, Super Mario Maker.
I have Mario Maker winning this match also.
You're
So,
crazy.
so Castlevania Symphony of the Night is definitely going to beat Xenoblade Chronicles because it's the better JRPG than Xenoblade. It's also just the better game in general. And it's a lot more appreciated by the Western audience than Xenoblade is. I don't think a lot of people would prefer Xenoblade. According to Ultimo, he doesn't even like it. So it definitely is not as widely liked as people would think.
I think between the two, Castlevania wins pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Pretty much for the reasons you mentioned. I think it's just a much better game overall. And I think anyone who plays them back to back would back Castlevania.
I agree as well. It's Symphony of Night. I mean, the idea that Xenoblade would even get this far to me is repugnant, but it's Symphony of the Night. There's no, I mean, Xenoblade is not like an enduring game. It's so, whatever.
You think that's repugnant? Mario Maker beat Castlevania according to Tom.
I'm going to go with Castlevania as well. No chance Xenoblade wins that. And the final of this division is going to be OOT versus Castlevania. Pretty good matchup, but I think it's a predetermined matchup. I have OOT moving on. What about you, Ultimo?
I have OOT moving on, but as a personal preference, I prefer Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I think it just personally, I think it has more replayability. It's like more polished. Ocarina of Time was really, I mean, there's a lot of issues with that game that a lot of people are meant to bring up for because they're just so infatuated with it, So, but Castlevania Symphony of the Night was just like, it was firing on all cylinders. I mean, when that game came out, it was incredible. It was really, really awesome. So, but anyway, yeah, Ocarina of Time is the one I'm picking.
I mean, I think Mario Maker was revolutionary. I think Ocarina of Time would beat it pretty handily.
Yeah, revolutionary because it's the first title that Wii users can be proud of, but that's about it in that regard. I agree that Ocarina of Time is not going to have too many issues dispatching Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, so what percentage do you guys think Ocarina of Time's going to get in each of these matches?
I actually think it's going to be a little closer than what you guys might expect. I think Ocarina of Time will win 60-40 to Castlevania.
I think as Ocarina of Time moves on, it's going to win by less and less each time. It's going to kill Hearthstone. It's going to kill whoever it plays in the second round. Final Fantasy will be a tougher matchup, and then Castlevania will be, even tougher. It's going to get closer, but it's still going to win, I'd say, like Sonic 60-40. It's going to be a comfortable win.
I was thinking like 80-20.
No, I don't think
I was thinking 80-20 too, because, I mean, Symphony of the Night, I don't know. There's people have a weird relationship with Castlevania. It seems to me there is a sort of like niche factor to it, but that's just me. It's again, that's not indicative of how it articulates itself on GameFAQs in general, because I don't know how diehard they are when it comes to Castlevania. So
on GameFAQs, it's the second seed. It's the first seed versus second seed. So I think it definitely will have a backing. If it is a wide disparity, then these GameFAQs users are fickle assholes, and they just are completely unfaithful to their picks. What they tiered these titles at.
And see, in any tournament, there's going to be people that want the underdog to win, and I could see people voting for Castlevania just because of that. But I think OOT moves on. And if you're just joining us, if you didn't see our past video, Ocarina of Time joins Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VII, Super Mario World, and Super Mario 64 in the quarterfinals. So I don't know if we're going to have enough time to move on to Division 6. Do you guys want to discuss some of
Yeah, what do you guys want to do?
We could move on, or we could discuss some of our picks from last night and elaborate.
Yeah, we could do that. We could see what our guest thinks about some of our more controversial things.
Yeah, so as you guys may know, UltimoSock wasn't with us last night with our picks. So I think one that he might not be a fan of, and I want to hear his opinion on it, Half-Life versus Final Fantasy X. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's Final Fantasy has the name backing on this website, but the other thing is the first Half-Life has not aged that well. I mean, if Half-Life 2 has the ability to carry, but half the original Half-Life, it's kind of like Halo Combat Evolved. The original Halo hasn't aged that well, so it's very similar to...
I will argue if Half-Life wins, it's going to win by users who have not played Half-Life recently. They're going strictly off nostalgia and remembrance. Blind faith. If they had played it recently, they will not vote for it.
I just don't think people give Half-Life enough credit. Like, you gotta give it a little more respect than that. There's a lot of games that haven't aged.
This is not a contest about respect. I mean, our show is called No Respect.
We're distributing the lack of respect. That's part of it. I don't even know anyone who's really that nostalgic for the original Half-Life. Maybe for the multiplayer aspects of it, and certainly not for any of the single-player components. So it's just not, it's not that memorable.
Yeah, you do have to remember Half-Life spawned Counter-Strike, but apparently people on this site don't even like that game, so we got some freaks here. What other picks surprised people? Metal Gear Solid 4 versus Kingdom Hearts 2 was also received with a lot of criticism.
I voted for Kingdom Hearts 2 will beat Metal Gear 4, because Metal Gear 4, I don't know, it was the weaker of the titles. Hands down, and I think Kingdom Hearts 2 has the namesake and the popularity that it's going to win out.
See, I like Metal.
I was argued against.
I like Metal Gear because Metal Gear 5 just came out. It has, the hype around it still. People are gonna look back
Metal Gear
fondly.
Solid 5 sucks.
People are gonna look back fondly. You freaking bought the game and played it.
I bought it and it sucks.
Metal Gear Solid 4. You told me how good it was.
It's
Metal Gear Solid 4 is gonna be looked back upon fondly, and I think it will win this one.
I'm actually going to have to disagree. I think Metal Gear Solid 4 is a very divisive title. It's not like Metal Gear Solid 3, which is remembered very fondly by people. Metal Gear Solid 4 had a lot of issues going on with it, and I think the dork quotient is going to play a role in this particular decision. I think Kingdom Hearts 2 will actually continue, even though Metal Gear Solid 4 was considered like a really pivotal title in the last generation. I still think that Kingdom Hearts 2 is still going to take it.
It was a pivotal title because they had 10 hours of cutscenes, and that's it. Like, 6 hours of gameplay. But I definitely do disagree with the decisions I was hostile into last night. Kingdom Hearts 2 would, hands down, beat Metal Gear 4.
I think that's about it.
In fact, in secret, off camera, both Shox and Dabu changed their opinion.
That's not true at all.
That is not.
Now you're just making things.
Now you're just making things up.
So
He's
just making things up. For Division 1, I think that's about all the controversial choices. Like Mega Man X, Mega Man 10 is Mega Man's probably going to beat Batman, I would say. Like, I think people probably agree with that.
I think some of the other picks we made that some people might have issue with.
I'm looking just at Division
1. One is
I'm looking just at Division 1 right now.
It's Mario 3.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking just at Division 1. We're going to work our way down. I think that's about it for Division 1. Division 2...
Sure you don't want to discuss Ratchet and Clank?
I think it gets about 150 votes.
Okay. Alright.
It's going to get more than that, because...
I
don't know.
Obviously.
I mean, GameFAQS fans, they like to be, like, cool, respected winners, so they anti-vote the popular ones.
See, and that's what I'm saying. There's people that are going to vote for the underdog, but they're just going to do that naturally. Division 2 seemed pretty straightforward. In fact, almost all of the higher seeds won their first-round matchup, except Star Wars lost to Xenogears, which I don't think... I mean, would anybody debate that?
I can see some people debating that. What's our guests think?
Well, I agree. I think when y'all are making that decision, KOTOR is a very, very well-respected RPG. Xenogears, even though it is well-respected and it has the GameFAQS RPG carry to it, and it is a JRPG, the KOTOR had better critical acclaim. People still actually play the games. I mean, some people do still play Xenogears, obviously, but I don't know.
Just play it over and over again.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the time they'll understand the plot. Um,
Now once you get to
I mean, we picked Xenogears last night, right?
Yeah, we
picked
did.
Xenogears.
We picked Xenogears.
KOTOR, I don't think will beat Xenogears. KOTOR was a great game, and especially the better KOTOR, but I mean, you still can't really compete with Xenogears since it was one of the better remembered RPGs of its time.
Yeah, and I think the only other matchup here that could be debated is Smash Brothers Wii U versus Mario Galaxy 2. We had Smash Brothers moving on. Me and Dabu agreed that, like, you know, just the hype around it and the whole competitive scene, even though it's a melee competitive scene, it'll carry over to Wii U.
I still argue against it. I still think Mario Galaxy will definitely edge out and win over Smash Brothers Wii U, but...
And I don't think anybody would be surprised if that happened. Like, it could easily go either way. And I think both games have a strong case to win. Either way, they're both losing to Final Fantasy VII if they move on. But
I agree that Smash Brothers, just by the name, is going to carry, because Mario Galaxy, you don't really hear people even talking about Mario Galaxy anymore. Which is sad, because they're actually really solid games. But you know, I just think people are still really, really deeply entrenched in the whole Smash Brothers conversation right now. So
I agree. That's probably
so
about
the
it.
4 Wii U users, you're saying that voted for Maker will come back and vote for this.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people aren't even going to know what Planescape Torment is. I mean, so like when we get to that point where it's like, okay, Smash Brothers versus Super Mario Galaxy 2, it's like, I mean, I don't know. I think they're
You have
just
to
going
think about what the match picture is going to look like. So Mario Galaxy 2 is going to have Mario, and that's it. He's going to be in space. Okay, that's great.
Very
Then the
recognizable.
Smash Brothers one is going to have like all the characters. It's going to have Mario. It's going to have Link.
Yeah,
it's
they're
going
gonna
to
see Wii Fit Trainer and be like, "What am I doing with my life?" Picking Wii Fit Trainer over Mario, an iconic character.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about like body shaming or something. I didn't know.
That's kind of where I thought you were going with that.
No, we're not superficial here. It's strictly business.
So, Division 3, I think only had like one controversial choice. We picked Super Mario World over Super Mario Bros. 3, and I want to talk about that, because I voted for 3. I think World wins because it has better graphics. More people are likely to have played it that are voting in this contest. But I think 3 is the better game because the worlds are more diverse. I was never a fan of the levels in Mario World. They weren't very appealing to me. The whole mini-game thing in Mario Bros. 3, I mean, it's very popular for speedrunning. I guess both games are, so that could go either way. I'm curious as to what you guys think about this matchup, especially you, Ultimo, since you weren't here last night.
It's tough. If it were me and like I was deciding which game I thought was better, I mean, I couldn't decide. Like I've talked to Dabu about this in the past actually, because Super Mario Bros. 3 is a very diverse game. It's a challenging game. There's a lot of interesting things going on with it. But Mario World is easier to pick up and play. It's in a lot of ways it's quote unquote funner because of that. But you know, I mean, it just depends on your relationship with fun.
Yeah.
But
oh, continue.
no. But anyway, if I was going to pick one over the other, I mean, I don't know. It's a really tough call. I don't know. I would probably go with World as well, because I think a lot of people just haven't even beaten Super Mario Bros. 3, especially who are going to be voting. So
Yeah, if I had to be biased, I would say Mario Bros. 3 because I personally like it a little more than World. But like I mentioned last night, a lot of the GameFAQs users and a lot of users in general, they flute across the majority of the worlds in 3, so you can't really appreciate and respect the design they had in each one of the worlds. So they're not going to remember it as fondly as World, right? All the stages were out there. It was transparent. So I think it's going to win simply off of that. It's going to be remembered a little more fondly than 3 was.
Do you have any input, Dabu?
Not beyond what I said last night. I mean, I think World is just... I mean, it's very close, and as I said last night, I would not be surprised to either way to see either of these advance. I think just World is held in a little bit higher regard to people who visit this website. I think it's a little bit more accessible. The cape mechanics kind of neat. I think the world map is. I think the world map in World is a little bit better, just because of the way it has multiple paths and hidden secrets, like Star World. Mario 3 kind of doesn't really have that appeal to it. I think the level design in Mario 3 is a little bit better. I think Mario World's a little too easy. You can fly over most of the levels. But I think ultimately what people are going to come down to is they're going to remember what they played when they were between 7 and 10 years old. And I think that's going to be Mario World, not Mario 3.
Yeah, and I would say a fault of 3 is that you can't, like from Mario World, you can go anywhere in the world, but in 3, you're stuck in the world you're in. You have to proceed to move on.
Mario World has a very cohesive overworld, that's why it feels really meaningful, right? When you're at Mario 3, it's kind of like, even though it has some non-linear aspects to it, it's still, you are very much tethered to the world that you're in, and Mario World has this side, of course, kind of like a cohesive feeling to it. That's kind of like, it makes it's really cool, but again, it is easier than Super Mario Bros. 3, and it's not quite as diverse.
Yeah, but I like Mario Brothers 3's item system, especially in their overworld, and that's what I think makes up for a little bit of its linear path in the worlds, because you can choose to come in to any stage with a certain item. It just gives you a depth, a variety of choices.
Yeah, that's true.
So moving on to Division 4, there weren't any, disagreements we had last night. We seemed pretty, I don't know, we seemed to agree on everything. Maybe Half-Life 2 beating Demon's Souls. There's a little bit of
GoldenEye versus Diablo 2.
Yeah, that's the one I was just going to bring up. So GoldenEye and Diablo 2, they're both, obviously they're completely different games, but you played them with your friends, and that's what a lot of people remember them for. So we voted for GoldenEye. I think GoldenEye sweeped it in our votes. But we've all played both of them. Ultimo, do you have any input on that matchup?
The only question would be how much of a factor nostalgia really is. That was one of the things you guys talked about a lot. In the first go-round was the idea of nostalgia, and the problem with GoldenEye, it has aged like shit. It looks and plays terrible. So if you've actually played it within a reasonable amount of time of you going to vote for this particular contest, you're going to know that it does not compare to Diablo 2. I mean, Diablo 2 has held up really well. So it would just, how big of a factor is nostalgia?
Yeah. I think it's pretty strong nostalgia, considering how much following GoldenEye always gets at HEDQs and SGDQs, the speedrunning marathon. Very highly looked upon. But I mean, I agree that Diablo 2 has aged better. In fact, Diablo 2 still has a pretty robust online community.
Well, I mean, half of it's bots, but I do agree. I went back and played Diablo 2 a year ago and enjoyed it. And I played GoldenEye with friends maybe around the same time, and it's just hard to play. It lags like crazy. Everything's so clunky. You only have one analog stick to use. It's a lot easier to play.
That's why you gotta play 4-player, One Life to Live, or the Slap
Yeah,
Zone.
yeah, Slappers Only is the best mode.
Then you pick the little kid.
I think Oddjob.
Yeah,
He's not a little kid. I think whichever game wins that is going to beat Skyrim. I don't think Skyrim has a chance against either of those two. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know if anybody disagrees.
Skyrim is first seeded in this division, but I still don't see it being beating.
It's kind of set up to lose. It's going to be hard to win.
I mean, I know a lot of people who've sunk 100 hours into that game, so I'm not saying it's going to win because it's not as, it doesn't have the quote-unquote revolutionary factor like GoldenEye or Diablo 2, but...
You could clip through a wall using a bowl in Skyrim if you consider that revolutionary, I think.
I'd do that for 100 hours.
The horse physics is pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, and there was the whole arrow in the knee meme that was going around. I mean, Skyrim's obviously a good game, but it's just GoldenEye and Diablo are both so good, and people have nostalgia from it. I don't see it winning that. That was probably the only thing in this division that we really disagreed on. Mario 64 is going to win it, I think. I don't think anything's beaten that.
Yeah, Mario 64 is going to move on.
What about the whole Metroid Prime versus Half-Life 2?
Metroid Prime wins that easily.
I argued against Metroid Prime. And Half-Life 2 is better remembered, and people would like it and vote for it a little more than Metroid Prime.
Metroid Prime, don't even get me started, man. Metroid
It's
Prime
a GameCube.
the best
it wasn't
Metroid.
widely
Metroid Prime is the
accessible
best
by everyone.
Metroid, and that's incredible considering Super Metroid exists.
So Shox just beat it like this year.
And you never beat it. You never beat it ever.
He's already arguing that it's the best Metroid.
Yeah, because I just played it, so I know how good it is compared to other Metroids.
You gave up. You forfeited the race.
What? You never beat it. But anyway, like Half-Life 2 is good. Some people might say it's overrated, or it hasn't aged well, and that's fine to say. I think it loses here regardless because Metroid Prime is just that good.
I think people are going to vote for Half-Life 2 because they have an irrational thought that Half-Life 3 will be made if they actually show some enthusiasm for 2 still.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think Metroid's gonna. Yeah, I don't think that's. It's a bad matchup. I mean, having Half-Life 2 up against Metroid Prime. I mean, that's tough. I say bad. It's very interesting. It's not bad, but
I mean, I would choose Demon Souls over Half-Life 2, but I know the GameFAQS community are not good enough to even beat Demon Souls, so I know they're not going to.
All right, so that
But you can summon for help in Demon Souls. I think they could just do that.
Yeah, but the
It's still
functionality for that in Demon Souls is pretty limited compared to what it was in like Dark Souls and stuff like that.
Yeah, the fact that you could actually lose your health and the checkpoints in Demon Souls is so much more punishing than Dark Souls in the series moving on that people who weren't dedicated enough just would give up on it pretty early.
Anyone who starts with Dark Souls can't go back to Demon Souls because of how rigid it is.
It's a lot more punishing, and I'll argue that the majority of GameFAQs users would probably prefer Animal Crossing, and just because they can't beat it.
So that wraps up our discussion for these first 5 rounds. As a closing exercise, does everybody have the bracket pulled up?
Yeah, I have it up.
Yes.
Okay. As a closing exercise, I want everyone to pick one matchup that they think could be a really big upset that nobody sees coming, or that nobody's voted for. So I'll start.
Only in the first 5 divisions.
Only in the first 5 divisions. So my upset that nobody else voted for or really sees coming, I think Donkey Kong Country 2 will beat Xenoblade Chronicles. So Dabu, what do you think? What's your big pick?
Apparently Super Mario Maker. I didn't even realize that was an upset. Apparently it is. Yeah, I think Super Mario Maker getting advanced in a few rounds is going to be an upset.
I personally think Sonic the Hedgehog 2 will probably upset Portal 2.
Didn't you vote for Portal 2?
I voted for Portal 2. However, I think the fanboys will come out in full swing and vote for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Just because it's an iconic character, if we want to go by namesake, then Sonic the Hedgehog 2 has it.
If Sonic beats Portal 2, I would say it would probably also beat Uncharted 2.
And then it would lose to Super Mario Bros. 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That'd be a good run for that game.
I think the Sonic the Hedgehog pick is really good, and the other thing is the DKC 2. My preference 1,000 times over would be to see that upset. I actually was thinking about Uncharted 2 and The Walking Dead. A lot of people have played through The Walking Dead, the Telltale game. And I mean, there's a possibility there that game could upset Uncharted 2, because the Uncharted games were very popular on PS3, but PS3 was also not as successful as 360, and The Walking Dead was a multi-platform title. So there is I mean, The Walking Dead got Game of the Year from a bunch of different outlets, and I'm not sitting here saying it's a better game. I actually think Uncharted 2 is a better game, but there's a possibility there. I'm thinking that one's going to be kind of close.
How do we know we're talking about the Telltale game? We could be talking about that really shitty Walking Dead first-person shooter. Like, we could be talking about that one.
If they are, then that's really tragic. But I think you're kind of following a little bit too far with that logic. I don't
I'm
think.
just throwing it out there. They're both called The Walking Dead.
Do games based off TV shows fare well historically in this contest? Dabu, any input?
I don't think so. I think
I mean,
I think if you're not Mario, Final Fantasy, or Zelda, you usually don't do so well.
Well, I
Sonic.
mean, it's something to look at because Walking Dead's like an incredibly popular show right now. So, I mean, I could see it winning, getting the TV vote or whatever. You know. I could see it
Coral.
happening.
The other thing I could see happening, and I really hope this doesn't happen because it would be terrible, but I could see Pokemon Red Blue beating Mario 3 and going on to Advanced Edition.
That's a good matchup. I don't think it'll happen, but
I
Pokemon's
don't
a good
think
game.
it will happen. I think Pokemon Red and Blue users or voters wouldn't find it in their heart to vote against it.
I mean, the weird thing is, Pokemon Gold Silver is like better than Red Blue. But Red Blue is considered the classic.
That's personal.
I mean, it's got that whole, like, let's play Pokemon thing on Twitch.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
stuff.
I'm surprised, Shox, you didn't say the biggest upset for you would be Vice City.
Oh, that's not gonna be an upset. Vice City's just gonna win.
I'm surprised you don't get death threats for that.
I probably will this time. Alright, well, I think that's going to wrap up our talk for the day, so thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about Division 6 in our next video, so feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you then.
All right, goodbye, GameFAQS.